Hey y'all, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and Trump Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent turns the tables on Jake Tapper and forces him to reconsider, should I be working for CNN any longer? Let's dive in.
So let's just talk about Moody's downgrading America's AAA credit, citing out-of-control debt, citing growing interest payments on that debt. How concerned are you that this is going to drive interest rates in the U.S. even higher and maybe even drive investment in the U.S. away?
Well, Jake, first of all, the history of rating agencies, by the time they get to a downgrade, everything's already in the market. Larry Summers and I don't agree on everything, but in 2011, the last time or two times ago when he had a downgrade, he poo-pooed it. What I think is important is that President Trump has just come back from this historic Mideast trip, and there's trillions of dollars coming into the U.S. So we are seeing confidence from investors. So I don't put much credence in the Moody's.
The downgrade comes as Republicans are trying to pass the big, beautiful bill, as the president calls it. It's a massive bill that has tax cuts, spending cuts. The nonpartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget says that this bill, if it passes in its current form, will add between 3.3 and 5.2 trillion to the national debt over the next decade. Now, the debt is a concern of yours. You talked about our debt being on an unsustainable path earlier this month. Won't this bill just make it worse?
There are several components there. So if we unpack it, there is the potential growth of the debt. But what's more important is that we grow the economy faster. So what we've seen under the past 4 years, and what we inherited, I inherited 6.7% deficit to GDP, which was the highest deficit when we were not at war, not in a recession. So we've been trying to bring down the spending, and we are going to grow the revenue side. So we are going to grow the GDP faster than the debt grows, and that will stabilize the debt to GDP, which even Secretary Yellen and I agree is the most important number.
So when in the first Trump administration, you were not a part of it, but obviously President Trump was, there were tax cuts passed, and the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget says that those tax cuts added $2.5 trillion to the national debt and did not, there's always a hope that it will bring about so much revenue growth that it will pay for itself, but that didn't happen.
Well, we also had something called COVID, and so there was a rescue plan.
This is separate from that, though. I'm aware of the COVID trillions.
But the CBO scoring was about a trillion and a half off. And again, what matters is the growth. And during President Trump's first term, up until March of 2020, we had very high non-inflationary growth. And that's what I think we can have again this time.
Let's turn to trade, because that's obviously where there's been a lot of focus. President Trump just put 150 countries on notice that their tariffs are about to go higher in the next few weeks if they don't reach a trade deal with the U.S. How exactly will you decide what those new tariff rates will be? Will they be what was previously announced on April 2nd, so-called Liberation Day? And when will they actually go into effect?
So, Jake, we have a 90-day pause. There are 18 important trading partners, probably another 20 strong relationships. President Trump has put them on notice that if you do not negotiate in good faith, that you will ratchet back up to your April 2nd level.
So the 90-day pause isn't just China, it's everybody?
No, the 90-day pause was put on about a week after April 2nd.
Oh, that first 90-day pause.
The first 90-day pause.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that with a few exceptions, the countries are coming with very good proposals for us. And I look at these proposals, and they want to lower their tariffs. They want to lower their non-tariff barriers. Some of them have been manipulating their currency. They've been subsidizing industry and labor. And I look at these proposals, and I think these are excellent proposals, but I wonder, how did we get here? How did the previous administrations allow this to happen to the American people?
That's a darn good question, Scott. Don't you think that's a good question? How did we get to this point? How did the United States lose its final AAA credit rating. It's almost as if there has been just this long domino of effects that have started ever since a certain housing market collapsed back in 2008, and now the only president who has had the guts to clean up any part of this mess has been Donald Trump. And here's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the tax cuts that happened in the first Trump administration. That, by the way, there's a constant lie that keeps on going around that, oh, tax cuts mean that we're losing money for federal coffers. That means that we're missing out on money. Well, here's the catch. They're missing out on the projected income of taxes. What they don't ever predict is how much more revenue that frees up, which means more taxes are brought in down the line because you've actually increased the size of the economy by freeing up more capital. Again, tax cuts work nearly every single time. It's rare for tax cuts to ever fail, and that's only in localized incidents in smaller states, not at the federal level. So yeah, in order to understand how we got here, and what Scott is doing, by the way, is a fantastic job of just dealing with every single point that Jake Tapper starts, that he brings up here. So why don't we start with Jake Tapper himself? This is the same dude who is about to release a book called Original Sin, and it's about how the mainstream media covered up the Biden administration's, basically how they covered up how senile Joe Biden really was. All right, and now it turns out that this dude has not only prostate cancer, but it's spread to his bones. That tells me that they weren't giving him proper care at the time, and that they knew, and if they dared do anything to help his condition, it would have raised more suspicions, which means that they put party and power politics over the American people. And so I'm not saying this to be mean towards Joe Biden. I'm saying this as a affront to Jake Tapper and what he does and what CNN does for a living. And that is obfuscate from reality so rich white liberals can feel better about themselves. That is not what media is supposed to do. Media is supposed to ask tough questions. So the tough questions should be, why is our credit rating getting downgraded again? The United States, even after the 2008 financial collapse, still had a AAA credit rating for the most part. For the first time, however, under the first Barack Obama administration, the first 4 years, the first term, we had our first downgrade. We got downgraded from AAA to AA+. Okay, that's like going from the majors to AAA in the minor leagues. That's the best way to describe it. And now the last organization to give the United States a AAA bond rating has reduced it. That's a problem, ladies and gentlemen. That means that the faith and credit of the United States, that we will pay back our debts, it's the first true bellwether saying that people don't trust that anymore. That means the people that buy our debt, which, by the way, it's not China, it's not Japan, it's not Russia, that's for sure. The American people actually own the majority of the debt here. And so what that really means is that Americans actually own the majority of our debts. For the most part, that's actually a really good thing because we're a little bit more patriotic in that regard. We might forgive a thing here or there. We might not actually cash out the bonds. But now that we're threatening the world with more tariffs to remind them, hey, you've been playing on an uneven playing field, we need to even that so our economies can work on even scale. I think that's what a free market is kind of supposed to do, and so tariffs are a way to get to that final endpoint. But other nations and other creditors are starting to realize that they can make a cheaper buck and a quicker buck by cashing out the bonds earlier than expected and almost crashing the market. That's why Trump a couple of months ago, not even a couple of months ago, about a month ago, said, we're pausing the tariffs. And that's another big thing that's happening here in this video, talking about the potential of tariffs. And what this pause ultimately means for the rest of the world is that you can now come and renegotiate with the United States and say, hey, we're trying to get X, Y, and Z. Can you at least give us X? Can you at least give us Z? We're not really asking for Y. This is Trump negotiating at the top of his game. This is him doing what he does best, the art of the deal. And Scott Bessent is trying to make Jake Tapper understand this, but Tapper doesn't want to. Or worse, and this is what I believe about Jake Tapper, he knows. All right, he knows right from wrong. He knows what's really happening. That's why he's writing this book, by the way. The book Original Sin, I've already mentioned it once. The reason that he knows what's going on is because he's not an idiot. But he knows that the gravy train stops if he dares tell rich white liberals the truth about what's going on. And so the truth is, under the Biden administration, we had a whole lot of money chasing less goods, causing inflation. And then the idea under the Biden administration, for some reason, was let's prime the pump even more and have a massive spending bill that did next to nothing for the economy and just flooded it with even more cash and more money. That ultimately caused our inflationary crisis, and that's why the inflation rate was so bad. To the point where in peacetime it was the worst inflation rate in the United States history as a single term of a president. That is something that would make Jimmy Carter spin in his grave, because even under his administration, it wasn't this bad. And so Trump has got a lot on his plate. He's trying to renegotiate trade deals, which so far it looks like other nations want to come in, talk to us, and make sure they can get a better deal on the table, because if not, the tariffs are going to make things worse. But if we cut taxes, that means better spending. That means a higher likelihood that you're going to be able to afford certain things, and that means the economy will get better. That happens every single time. So he's trying to tackle that as well. And finally, the big elephant in the room, our deficit. We're $36 trillion in debt. And the best way to deal with that is to clean up corruption. That's what Doge is all about. But also open up the economy and start building our country to make America great again. Remember, Build Back Better? That didn't work. That's why there's a new sheriff in town. And Scott Bessent is trying to make Jake Tapper understand this. But again, Tapper does, but the CNN audience refuses to listen to reason. Maybe one day they will. But I guess you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politibrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Till then, y'all have a good one.